Hello, everyone. In this lecture, we will be discussing the essay The Second Sex, written by Simone de Beauvoir. Mainly, we will be focusing on the third chapter of Book 1, Dealing with Myths. Speaking about Simone de Beauvoir, she was born in the year 1908. She was a French writer and a feminist. And before she became the philosopher she is known for, she also worked in a number of schools and later she became a writer. So, this particular book that we are dealing with, The Second Sex, it was published in the year 1949, the English translation in the year 1949. This book has two parts. The first part of the book deals with facts and myths, and the second part deals with women's life in the contemporary times. So, this is about the book The Second Sex. In order to understand Beauvoir as the philosopher that she became, it is also important to understand the days that she spent in Sorbonne University. She joined the university in the year 1928, and quite strangely, she never identified herself as a feminist initially. She never felt the need to fight for the rights of women. She never considered that women were underprivileged, and this is all because in her childhood, or the women that she had in her family, they never suffered. They never considered themselves as underprivileged. They were all strong independent women, so she never met those women who had struggles, who were victims of the structures built in the society. So it was one major reason that when she was in university, the initial years in university, she never felt the need to identify as a feminist. Now, it is her time spent in the university, or it is during this time that she meets another philosopher, Jean Paul Sartre. Again, quite strangely, he had failed an year and he was repeating an year. That is how they met. So he had failed an exam in philosophy in the previous year. They became close friends. They started studying together. She also became a tutor to Sartre, and later both of them passed the exam, and it was at the age of 21 that she became the youngest person to ever pass the aggregate exam, but she was second to Sartre. Now, it was during this time that the other women in France were fighting for the voting rights of women. But she did not feel it necessary to be a part of it. Like I mentioned earlier, she felt that the situation of women was fine. It didn't need any change. It is fine as it is. And she even mentioned that if women were given the right to vote, she will not exercise it. So she was very stubborn with her decision at that time. Later, we do find that the voting rights for women were granted in 1944 in France. Speaking about Beauvoir and Sartre's relationship, like I mentioned, they met at Sorbonne University, and their relationship was both intellectual and romantic. They started off as friends, then they became study companions, and later she became a romantic partner to him. So this is how their relationship transitioned, and there were also intellectual conversations happening between them. But one major criticism that she faced as a result of this relationship was that she or her ideas were not independent. People criticized her writings, saying that whatever she wrote was more of a response to what Sartre had written. So it was something that Sartre would write about, and later she would be responding to that idea. A perfect example for this was The Ethics of Ambiguity, published in 1948, which was written by Sartre. And a response to this particular essay was written by Beauvoir in the year 1943, titled as Being and Nothingness. So, this is one major criticism that she had faced. And because of this criticism, people felt that her ideas did not have an originality. It was not her own thoughts that she shared through her writings. Another major event that influenced her thought or perception of life was the Second World War that happened from 1939 to 1945. So, during this war, the men were recruited to fight for the army, and it was only the women left behind. And so, when the men went to the war, Bugoi was left behind in a feminine world. That is when she understood the need for women to have an independent life, how the women around her were craving for that independence. We can say that she had taken her independence granted, and all these women that she sees around her, she realizes that they did not enjoy the same authority, agency, independence that she had in her life. And this is from where her perspective about the condition of women, the identity of women, changes. The Second Sex, which was published in the year 1949, it was 5 years after the voting rights was granted for women. And speaking about the reception of this book, people were not happy with the claims that she has made in this book. Some of them even mentioned that it was quite derogatory against men, and women claimed that it was misogynist, and the writings that the words that she has used, it is unacceptable, and she is even suffering from sexual neurosis. This was a strange allegation, criticism against her. And as a response to this particular criticism, she speaks in such a way: people offered to cure me of my frigidity or to temper my labial appetites. I was promised revelations in the coarsest terms, but in the name of the true, the good, and the beautiful, in the name of health and even of poetry, all unworthily trampled underfoot by me. So people said that all those claims, all those things that she has mentioned in the book, it is because of some sort of labial appetite that she had, some sort of sexual neurosis. But she didn't pay much attention to these kind of allegations or criticism. She mentions here, she didn't care for what these people were saying. Albert Camus, one of her friends, also criticized her for the representation of the French men in the book. And she states about this: he had blithely admitted to us once that he disliked the idea of being sized up and judged by a woman. She was the object, he was the eye and the consciousness. So you can simply imagine a person like Camus making such kind of a statement, then what would be the reaction of a common man? And just the idea of breaking the stereotypes, just the idea of a woman talking about the Frenchmen or the men in general was never accepted by the society. But like her earlier statement, she never bothered about it. But there was even another group who accepted the things that she mentions in this book, who felt the need to bring about a change through the things that she has written. Later, this book becomes an important study in feminist criticism.